everybody, it's Tammy Becker. I'm the founder of YOU Ministries, and I have my husband here with me today, Jon Becker.
Nice meeting you.
And so he's coming on to talk today about his side of the view of, we've been going on our series here about my scoliosis fusion surgery and the coma and stuff. So we're gonna jump right in. So Jon, how long did you think you talked to me about getting the surgery?
Probably about 5 years. She had a lot of pain, and finally it was to the point to where it was pretty handicapping to her and a lot of pain, and so she decided to do it. So it took about 5 years of talking about it.
Yeah. And then so finally, long story short, we make it to the hospital. And then once we get to the hospital, I go into the first surgery, right? And then that was a 7-hour surgery, and then I had a day rest before the big surgery, and I don't really remember anything about that day.
Well, you were on some pretty good medication, so you didn't have to worry about knowing much about the second day.
So did anything relevant happen or anything?
No, just she went through the first surgery. The doctor said everything went well, and then they gave her a day off in between the next surgery.
And so then that third day, which was the 5th of December 2018, I went in for surgery that morning. And what time do you think they rolled me in?
It was early in the day, around 9 o'clock. And then it ended up going a total of 17 hours. So it was a long, long day, and they weren't done with her until late in the night, early the next morning, actually.
So what was going on? What were you doing all day during that time?
Just waiting. I had family friends from Arizona come over and hang out for the day, and we spent the whole day waiting. Wasn't till early morning, like 3 or 4 in the morning, I think it was, until they said she was done.
And then, so did you go home after they said I was done?
Yep, I went back to the trailer after she was done, because they said she wouldn't wake up for a while.
So the next morning came and you came to the hospital?
Yes.
And I still wasn't awake.
She was in ICU, and they had her on a respirator, and then she wasn't awake. The first day, second day, third day, fourth day. I think it was day 5 or 6 before she woke up. They had her on some pretty heavy drugs. They had her on some fentanyl and some other stuff. And one thing is my wife doesn't do painkillers, so I think the doctors, because she was prescribed painkillers, they were under the assumption that she had a high dosage of drugs that she could do, or a high tolerance, I guess. But truly not the case.
Not the case. The Dr. McNulty prescribed him before the surgery, so I would have him afterwards, because he said I needed to keep the pain level down and not to let it get ahead of me. So they took that as a sign that I was on painkillers, right?
Right. Yes.
So anyway, so you skipped through that 6 days like it was nothing?
Well, it was touch and go for the whole time. She would wake up, kind of, but then they would give her more fentanyl, and she'd go back to sleep. But every time she would wake up, she had really high blood pressure, and they were trying to get her to wake up and be coherent, but they were so worried about her blood pressure that they would let her go back to sleep. She had good vitals, but they just couldn't get her to wake up without going into high blood pressure.
So her, when he says her, he's meaning me. so
Tammy's blood pressure.
Yeah. So anyway, but what all did they do in that 6 days? Didn't they run some tests?
They ended up they did a CAT scan. They were worried that she might have had a stroke, and that was part of the reason for her not waking up. So they did a CAT scan, and they weren't really aware of why it was taking her so long to come out of it. That was about day 4 that they started thinking there might have been something else wrong, rather than just the surgery and the anesthetics.
So when did they put me on a ventilator?
From the time you went into surgery.
They never took. Why didn't they take me off the ventilator?
Because you weren't awake.
A lot of people that are in coma, some of them are not on a ventilator.
Well, they kept you on a ventilator the whole time.
They said I was having a hard time breathing or something?
I don't recall that.
Okay. So anyway, I was on that ventilator, and they told you on what, the 6th day or the 7th day they were going to trach me?
It was the 5th day that if she had to stay on the ventilator much longer, they were going to do a tracheotomy on her. And that's when I really sat down and talked to the doctor, a little more serious talk, because I didn't know anything about tracheotomy or any of that stuff. I'm not really aware of surgery. I don't spend much time in the hospital except for the last couple of years. So the doctor, I told him, hey, you guys got her on a lot of medicine. My wife doesn't take medicine. So they tried cutting her off on day 5 off the fentanyl. And then on day 6, I believe it was, or day 5, they started cutting her off. Day 6, I came back in the next morning and they had her back on fentanyl. And then they started winging her back off of it again. I guess fentanyl is a very controllable drug. However, it does have pretty hardcore side effects. And I think Tammy had some hallucinogen stuff going on with it that she's had to deal with.
So the day that I woke up, okay, so what were your feelings? Express to them, the audience that's been following this, what your feelings were on this side of things, that whole 6 days of worrying. And
the unknown is the most worrisome thing. Is, are you going to come out of this alive? Are you going to be normal again? Are you going to have a normal life? Did you have a stroke? Just well-being of my wife is, more than anything, is the most frightful thing that you can go through. The unknown is truly probably sums it up. Just the unknown of, like, are you going to be okay? And not knowing, and with doctors being concerned that she wasn't waking up was kind of little, made me feel uneasy about things, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Let's fast track to, you got the daughters there, and then let's fast track to the day I woke up.
Okay, so she woke up in the morning. Tammy's sister Stephanie and her daughter Amanda were in the room. I just left to go let them come in to see her because she wasn't awake yet. So she actually woke up when I wasn't there. Good news is Stephanie and Amanda were able to be there for that. So it was pretty exciting. And then she had a funny voice when they pulled the tube out of her throat, and that was pretty scary. And then she had a couple of days of really bad pain and from waking up from being asleep that long, and then plus she went through over 20 some hours of surgery. So when you think about that in terms of how much pain she was in, and when they did a total spinal column rebuild, there's a lot of screws and a lot of things going on in that back. So so the first couple of days after she woke up was really tough because she had to get the pain under control. So by about day 3 after being, at this time, we've already been in the hospital for 10 days after 3 days after being out. She was doing really well. I think it was the 2nd day after she woke up, they actually had her sitting up in bed. And by the 3rd day, they had her up and walking. So that was really impressive. And then,
talk about the hallucinations.
Well, I don't really know because I wasn't in your mind for that. When she did wake up, she kept saying, I see black people, I see black people. And a lot of the nurses were of color. And so I was like, well, yeah, they're, and good nurses in Las Vegas. It was great surgery, great people taking care of her. Yeah, and then she would, like, when I would come in the morning, she'd be like, I'm in trouble, I did this or did that. And I would actually go ask the nurses, what did my wife do? And they'd be like, nothing, I don't, so she kind of had her own mind going and doing her own things on her. But I think a lot of it was drug-induced mind.
Right. I mean, I have a lot of memories, like I've talked about in previous episodes, that are still real to me today. But then when I asked you about them, you're like, Tammy, you know, that didn't happen. I went and asked the nurses.
Yeah.
So the hallucinations are a very real thing. You know, through all that, we did a lot of praying. You did a lot of praying.
Yep.
And God comforted you.
Yep.
And
He came through. I prayed for her waking up and being healthy and having a successful surgery, and everything that I prayed for, he was able to provide, for sure.
yeah, so he
Amen
delivered.
to that.
Amen. Yeah, he delivered. And so here we are today. Just, you know, it's we're really close to 2 years post-op. Tomorrow's our anniversary, and I'm here to celebrate that with you. And
Yep.
we thank God every single day that we've made it through. And I say we because this has been a journey for both Jon and I, all the way around. Not just going through the surgery, but the recovery. He's had to really be my sidekick for a lot of this recovery, and he's just my rock. And I'm really thankful that God sent him, and you know, he was a stand by my bed man because he was there through everything when he just really had no one to turn to but God. So
Yeah.
yeah. So Jon, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having me be a part of it.
Yeah, so you guys will bring in, we've got a couple more, we're going to bring in my sister, and we're going to bring in my friend Lori, who I've talked about, and she's the friend that was with Jon the day he talked about. So Lori's going to do an interview as well. So make sure to check back in next Wednesday when we drop our episodes every Wednesday. And don't forget to subscribe and hit our bell, and we'll see you back here. And don't forget to check us out on youministries.com and check us out on our Facebook group, You Ministries. See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.